Right. Well, as I promised the early birds, we would start on time. So it is now 10 o'clock, and we've got a small but perfectly formed group of attendees. I suspect the numbers may well start to climb as people are jumping off their previous call to get onto this one. But I do think we should probably make a start because we will finish for 10:30, so you can get on to your next commitments. So. And the first thing to just say is that the meeting is going to be recorded, and I hope that that is acceptable to you all. I will also just now introduce myself. So those of you who don't know me, I'm David Byrne. I'm the Director of Newcastle Health Innovation Partners, our academic health science centre. I'm also Pro Vice Chancellor for the Faculty of Medical Sciences at Newcastle University. So I think that what we'll do, if it's all right, is although I can see all your tiles and probably more tiles and names and faces at the moment, but we'll get the slides up, Beth, if that's all right, and we'll make a start on the presentation. I'm hoping desperately that most of you will know about at least the name Newcastle Health Innovation Partners, and know that it's an academic health science centre. So if we can get the slides up, please, Beth, thank you. So I can see those, and hopefully you can all, and we'll just go into presentation mode and then we'll be good to go. There we are. So our journey so far, well, we're into our 4th year, unbelievably, of designation. So it's been an interesting journey with COVID right in the middle of it, and the same for all of you as well, I dare say. If we just move on to the next slide, this is going to be the plan. So we're just going to basically, for those of you who really are coming from a standing start, what is NHIP for short? What is Newcastle Health Innovation Partners? What have we done so far, and what are we planning to do? Next slide, Beth. So every academic health science centre in the country, and there are only 8, have got a name. So, and the key thing here in italics is we are designated. There are some pale imitations of academic health science centres out there who have basically got what you might call shadow organisations. But this was a competition that we effectively won this badge of honour for, and we're one of only 8 that have been formally designated by NHS England and NIHR. So that's a really important thing to know. It's something we should all rejoice in and take a lot of pride in. You can see that an AHSC is defined as being a coming together of clinical excellence and research excellence to basically try to affect positive change for citizens. And it's a universal world currency. These AHSCs exist in all over the world, from Australia through to North America. You can see what the partnership comprises. The CEOs are heavily invested from all of these organisations in the Academic Health Science Centre, to the point of coming down to interview when we were first going through the competition. There's a lot of commitment there. And to also mention that since we were designated, Northumbria University are now a very valued affiliate partner. Next slide. So in terms of working with the wider picture, we're not a standalone body. It's really important that we try and add value and visibility to an awful lot of the other existing infrastructure, some of which was in place before we were designated, and some of which we'd like to think in some way we have contributed to securing as the Academic Health Science Centre has been in existence. So I'm not going to go through this, but you can see the way the slide is drawn, that the partners are the sort of bubbles in the Venn diagram, and that their infrastructure that resides with them is associated with the different bubbles. So obviously the Biomedical Research Centre is effectively held by the Acute Hospitals Trust. They report on that financially, for example, to NIHR. So this graphic shows that we're sat in what really is a very, very rich ecosystem, and let it be just emphasised that Newcastle is right up there with, when you look at a diagram, with the places like London in terms of the amount of NIHR infrastructure and the diversity of NIHR infrastructure that we hold. Next slide, please. So these are the other academic health science centres. They're only in English currency at the moment. The other new designation back in March 2020 was Bristol Health Partners. The others had been previously designated on first and then second waves of competition. Next slide, please. So basically, as I say, this was quite a process. It required a full application form saying what we were about, what we were planning to do. And we really had to evidence our excellence both in service, but also in translational research, particularly, and also in education. And in a number of those areas, it was a very clear and obvious thing that we could do. So things like Care Quality Commissioned Outstanding for both of our main trusts, real excellence in translational care, and we've always been leaders in education and training. And so we were hopefully, we thought, in a strong position, and so it turned out. So we got the actual letter on the 31st of March at 6 o'clock and came into being at midnight that night on the 1st of April 2020. And if you remember what you were probably doing at that time, I suspect you were sat at home about a week into or 2 weeks into lockdown. I think it's really important, you know, that we do not get money for being an academic health science centre. It is a huge, as I said before, badge of honour, and it gives us an opportunity to try and work together in different ways. Next slide, please. So what we set out to do, we said in the original application, we would have 3 subcommittees. So basically, we've got those in research and innovation, education and training, people and culture. And we have representatives across all of the partner organisations and Northumbria contributing to those different subcommittees. We basically put our academic strengths framed around what you would say, I hope, are familiar topics within the research ecosystem. So aging and multiple long-term conditions, that is the subject of our Biomedical Research Centre. Rare diseases, I won't go to our preeminence in that and why we chose it, but effectively it's been certainly evidenced since that as well with various recent awards. Diagnostics in the shape of Diagnostics Northeast, ditto therapeutics, particularly advanced therapies, with Therapeutics Northeast. And then the more recent development and launch of the NHIP Academy all around career development opportunities, which has really been a flagship organisation and I think keeping us at the cutting edge of education and training. Next slide. So what have we done so far? Well, we've done an awful lot. First appointment COO was Peter Noble, who may be known to some of you on the call. Peter was then followed by Hannah Powell, who comes from an NHS background and management in the NHS. And Hannah shed a very different view on the functioning of the HSC, which has been really welcome and has challenged some of the dogma and way of working. We've been therefore doing an awful lot of refashioning of the strategy board. We've done a lot to develop our programs and refresh and focus, particularly focus on things that we really have the bandwidth and the ability to influence and make a difference to. We've done a lot towards the end of Peter's reign in terms of levying partner resource contributions to give us a so-called war chest, where we've basically been able to invest in, as I'll show you in a moment, infrastructure, i.e. in the form of people, many of whom are on this call, to actually help to lubricate the wheels and to make the HSC successful and add value to the partnerships. Core team I'll come back to. The advisory board's very recent, and I'll show you who's on the advisory board from the good and the great in a very short time. And obviously the world's moved on since we were designated. We now have integrated care boards. We've got Collaborative Newcastle, and we're working actively to link in with them, as I'll highlight in a second. Next slide, please. So basically, the board currently includes the CEOs of the partner organizations, which are those in the Venn diagram to the panel on the right. And then we've basically tried to reflect and again, in a sense, it's in videos. We've obviously got the leads of the 3 subcommittees, so that's John Isaacs, Dave Jones and Moya Kushlaw, but we've also got representation from some of the wider NIHR infrastructure that I showed you on a previous slide. And I won't go through that, but you can see that basically there is some representation. But we are reflecting on this because clearly it is not comprehensive in terms of representing all of that NIHR infrastructure that I showed you. And a recent welcome addition has been Vicky McFarlane-Reid, Exec Trust Director for innovation, amongst other roles, and business development. Next slide, please. So this is the kind of organogram of how the NHIP works. You can see we've got the strategy board. There's an ops group sat below that, which meets to kind of cite individuals from each of the partner organizations on big issues and allow them to feed up issues as well, and to ensure that we're well cited on opportunities coming down the line. We've talked about the 3 subcommittees, and obviously slung below those subcommittees are working groups, which are away and doing various different roles and seizing different opportunities. So if we move on to the next slide, we'll put some meat on the bones. So here is a sort of graphic which is a bit busy, and apologies for that, and hopefully you can see it. But effectively, you've got the strategic initiatives down the left there. So mental health, CNTW, I've just been coming off a call with Hamish McAllister-Williams, who's their Associate Director for Research within the Trust. They're very keen on trying to capacity build in terms of research capability within mental health, which would be incredibly welcome. The innovation pathway very much sat with the Academic Health Science Network. Economic growth across the council in particular is responsible for that. Then you've got the various subcommittees and satellites, and I'm not going to go through all of these, but you can see research and innovation. You've got things that bridge effectively multiple organizations. Some are at a more mature stage than others. Some are working with extant infrastructure and extant initiatives. Some are new and in development. We've talked about the NHIP Academy under education and training, but clearly there are other roles that education and training covers, and again there is work ongoing there. AMLTC is aging and multiple long-term conditions, so we're doing work there, as I'll come to, in trying to refresh the education offer in that space. And then people and culture, really trying to break down barriers under Moya's leadership, and the senior exec nurse in NUF, and to try and look at all manner of things like contracts, novel ways of managing the workforce, breaking down what might be silos and barriers. And then the NHIP Ops, which is kind of self-explanatory on the right under Hannah's oversight as Chief Operating Officer. If we move on then, please. Yeah, so effectively, this is just showing you what the core team is currently standing at within the NHIP. Now, this has been a relatively recent development. It's been based on the resource, as I say, that we had the partners commit to. So you can see that Hannah oversees a team. And one of the key things that she identified, which was a real deficiency, was in the comms space. So we're really pleased that we've got Mel and Beth who are in that team. You've got Amy there, as you can see, who's on this call, as well as Mel, and the project and change manager. Amy has been with the NHIP Academy for quite some time now. She really has got a lot of institutional knowledge. And then you've got Anna, Holly-Ann and Sean sat reporting up to Amy. Amy Brown is helping Dave Jones in the NHIP Academy and is doing a first-rate job there. And Mari may be known to many of you from a biobanking background. She's been appointed as the ops manager to help with diagnostics and therapeutics Northeast. So it's a quick whiz through the core team. It is evolving, but it is giving us very, very welcome bandwidth in much needed spaces. If we move on now, please. This is the advisory board. I said the good and the great. They're names that may or may not be familiar to some or all of you. Just to highlight Graham Chapman, he is going to be the chair of the app board, and also in that role, we felt it was a good idea for him to take over chairmanship of the actual NHIP board as well. Hitherto, I've been chairing that, and that has not been a satisfactory arrangement. In a sense, you could argue there's been a bit of conflict there. So it'll be great to have Graham come in that role, and that's far more in parallel with the other academic health science centres around the country. So there are colleagues that have been drawn from further afield, but there are also colleagues who are close to home who really know the ecosystem in the Northeast and what it's got to offer. Next slide, please. So I mentioned before about trying to live in the new world and align with the structure. So the integrated care system is a major player, obviously, in the NHS. And so we've had meetings with Sam Allen and Cillian Donaldson, the CEO and chair respectively. We're very, very much involved with their R&I strategy and the scoping, which is still relatively early days as they find their own footing. But we certainly have played quite a role in the secure data environment, which is the research interface that bolts on. Well, it will bolt onto our Grey North Care record for research, and also have been playing a big role in other bids linked into the ICS. Again, collaborative Newcastle, very much more Newcastle focused, big city council focused, but also involving universities as well, including Northumbria. So we are, for example, here doing a lot of work to look at the oversight or sharing of leadership and governance. We're looking at a workforce project with the Innovation Centre for Data. We're also supporting something called D2P, which is duplication of personalisation, which is a really interesting piece of work looking at care pathways, avoiding or spotting outliers in the system and trying to look at practical ways of reducing that sort of impact on the health system. For example, attendances at A&E, and putting interventions into place that might avoid that out in the community. So it's a join up between social care and hospital-based care, and I think it's going to offer an awful lot going forward. That's been a relatively recent development. And I've talked about the comms strategy, which this is part of. But you're part of our comms strategy by joining this just now. Next slide, please. So beyond all of this, obviously there was the academy team, which I referred to. There's been the formal launch. We've got NHIP fellows, which are basically commitment from the trust and the university to avoid people falling down the cracks between a fairly advanced stage of being a clinical academic and becoming a consultant and an independent researcher. We're really proud of that development. We've got the ops manager appointed, as I told you, in diagnostics and therapeutics, and hosted an extremely successful conference earlier this year. We've got new communities and connections developing in a whole raft of research and innovation areas. I mentioned about the deep dive into education on aging and multiple long-term conditions. So important, given that is a big USP for Newcastle as a whole in terms of our preeminence in the aging space, as well as multiple long-term conditions. And we have contributed significantly, either through support or more material contributions in a whole raft of awards and grants, which we just don't have the time to go through. Next slide. So future plans, the last part and a short part of that. This is the kind of timeline that you see I've referred to in passing. So from the time of designation through to when, if all things play out, we are going to see our designation ending. And what we anticipate before that will be a new strategy and a new application and how we're going to take things forward into the next era of Newcastle Health Innovation Partners. So there are conversations going on. If we go on to the next slide, please, of what are we going to do for the new strategy for NHIP? How are we going to tweak it? We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and our strengths, but clearly we live in a very deprived area. So I think the partners are all very keen to have a little bit more of an explicit focus on how we might collectively add value to tackling the crushing inequalities in health and care that our region experiences. There are other areas which you can read for yourself here, the Dragon's Den initiative to be launched in the Acute Hospital Trust, more on comms and engagement, so keep your eyes open for things from Mel and her team. We're making, and I see Kasha's on the call. Kasha has been really helpful across the piece in Newcastle on growing public patient innovation and engagement, or involvement and engagement, and that's so important in these structures going forward. So we really can't overlook that. We need to bolster that, and we recognise that. And as I say, get our act together for a new competition, hopefully not blighted at designation with another pandemic. So if we go to the last slide, which is just a kind of holding slide, there's our website. I think if you've any ideas or reflections that you don't necessarily want to raise just now, then please feel free to get back to the team with any of those thoughts that you might have, be they great ideas, be they thoughts about how we could do things differently. We'd love to hear from you. So if we can come out of the slides now, we've got about 10 minutes left. That was a bit of a race through just there. But I think some of you may know some of what I've said. Some of you that may have been completely fresh. So do you have any questions on what you've heard or what you haven't heard, but you hope to hear? And while you are thinking, if you just pop your hand up in the screen, actually it might be easiest because we're on to more than one screen just now. While you're having a think about that, we did, after getting a few sign-ups, get a couple of questions forwarded to us. So it's saying, what type of things are you looking for from people looking to get involved in NHIP? Okay, well that's an interesting one, because what we would love is for you to firstly be ambassadors, spread the word. I would think we've succeeded where I could walk into the Freeman Hospital or walk along the corridors of St Nicholas's or one of the other mental health hospitals and say, tell me in a couple of sentences about NHIP. And somebody would give me an answer and they would know what it was. I think that, this is a slow burn. There's no money, and we all know that money sometimes makes things happen, but it is a huge badge of honor. And I can tell you that this does create a positive and virtuous cycle in terms of us then being able to write that into other applications, which has in turn helped them leverage money from elsewhere. So having this, it's a bit like getting, I suppose, maybe like getting a Nobel award or a knighthood. It doesn't come with cash as such, although maybe the Nobel Prizes do, but it does in turn benefit the organizations collectively. So I think that if you could do that, act as ambassadors, if you're in the creative frame of mind and you've got ideas, we'd love to hear from you. If you want to do things that you think NHIP, i.e. bridging multiple partners that we've referred to, your activity could be of interest to NHIP for us to, if you like, help promote it on your behalf, then that would be extremely good to know about as well. If you think your research or your education ideas could be of interest to the Academy or to one of the research satellites, ditto, we'd love to hear from you. How do you find out more about NHIP? Well, Beth and Mel absolutely can put out, I've already shown you the link to the website, but they can send you an animation, which we've done, which is a really nice little piece, which does tell you about the Academic Health Science Centre in a far more engaging way, I'm sure, than me. It's done by cartoons and the like, and I think that the animation is worth having a look at, and you can in turn use that to promote it to others both within and outside of Newcastle. Well, so any other reflections or thoughts on what you've heard? We've only got a few minutes left. Yeah, Kasia, come on. Hello. Now, I name checked you there, so you're going to ask something about PPIE.
Well, it was just whether there was any more detail on the Dragon. I really like what you're saying about that Dragon's Den initiative and sort of tackling inequalities, which has obviously been even more stark since the pandemic. And I was just wondering, what will the key people be involved in that initiative, and would there be a role for the public? Because I think, once again, they often have the answers to the questions that we're asking. So I was just wondering whether it was a staff thing or would people be involved as well?
So brilliant questions. There's two questions there, aren't there? And I might let I see Hannah's on the call, or maybe Mel might want to talk about Dragon's Den. I think that is an exciting initiative. To your second point, the inequalities thing, has come out of a workshop that we had with the partners. All the CEOs were present down at the Civic Centre only a matter of a couple of weeks ago. Well, obviously, we had written it in a very subliminal way in the original application, and quite frankly, we haven't done much in that space, if I'm absolutely honest. So I think we do agree there's a lot of work to be done there, Kasia, and you're absolutely right that we need to look very much at the colleagues and the public in terms of how we get more traction in that space, because I would respectfully submit that I perhaps are not the best person, for example, to know the issues and how they'd be best tackled. So I think we absolutely need to expand our thinking around who we pull in, and that will involve the public. You're absolutely right. The PPIE, because of COVID, and because of and I know you know this, it's a slightly fragmented landscape. I think it's been slightly slower to get a route, but I think we're addressing that now. I think going forward, we were asked a question on PPIE, which was quite a challenging question at the interview, and we won't get off the hook again for another interview. I think we're going to have to show progression in that space. So for all the reasons you've rehearsed, that's critical. Now I'm going to flip over to Hannah, because I don't want to run us over time, to just tackle the Dragon's Den one. Hannah.
I noticed Amy had already taken herself off mute, so Amy is our link into the Trust Initiative. I see also Laura has asked about that in the chat, and also more broadly, how do we meet and network? If we run short, Laura, I'll send you an email, but I'll hand over to Amy just to talk briefly about Dragon's Den, if that's okay.
I'll do a very quick overview. So Dragon's Den is actually launching today, I think, in the Trust. So Dragon's Den is something that Newcastle hospitals are leading, and it's to help people get involved in research who wouldn't usually be involved. So to participate, you need to either be a part of Newcastle hospitals or an honorary member of Newcastle hospitals. But what they are encouraging people to do is to work broadly across our NHIP partners. So it may be that clinicians or people who work in the hospital have a great idea, but we're encouraging them to reach out and get in touch with people in the university or the council or the AHSN or CNTW and bring them in to come up with their project ideas. So over the next 2 months or so, they'll submit applications telling us what their idea is, and then we'll have a panel of dragons from across our partnership who will kind of choose their best ideas, and there are small pots of funding to help those people drive that research forward. So it's a bit of a pilot with Newcastle hospitals leading it for us, but yeah, we're really excited to see what ideas come out of that, and hopefully there's lots of collaboration as well.
Super, thanks, Amy. Nice, concise answer, brilliant. And so, I mean, I think that if there are issues that you've heard, or there are queries that you've got, then please feel free. You can see in the chat, if you've got your chat open there, Mel's gone and popped on the link to the latest animation. It's worth having a look at. It's really short, so it's not going to take much of your time out. And then also the link to the website. And again, if you can promote NHIP in any shape or form on your travels, get it out there, get the messaging out there. It really is. The other places are not slow at doing this, and it's really important that we promote ourselves as much as we can going forward as well. I know that will make sense to everyone on the call. So look, I think I am going to wrap it up now, because I don't see any more hands or questions in the chat, and I promised we'd get off at 10:30, so I'm going to give you back 90 seconds in your diaries. I think you probably agree that's been more exciting than the last day at the test match today, if you've been following it, probably because that will be rained off and this hasn't been. But it's been really good to see you all. Obviously, we'll be doing more events. Do keep watching this space and tell your friends about NHIP and the events. And enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.